I'm Roxy, 33, female. Let me take you back to those early days when Raymond, my husband, and I were young and head over heels in love. We were the kind of couple who thought they could conquer the world together. Every challenge, every obstacle we'd face together, hand in hand. Some Romeo and Juliet type crap. Boy, do I regret not listening to my mother now. Anyway, when I found out I was pregnant, it was both a shock and a blessing. We were barely out of high school, not a dime to our names, and had no idea how to navigate the world as adults. It was a wake-up call, to say the least. Raymond, being the responsible one, knew he had to find a steady job, and he did, thanks to his uncle. His uncle ran a small, obscure warehouse business that specialized in packaging supplies. It wasn't glamorous, but it was a paycheck that was very much needed because baby, remember? To put it kindly, Raymond isn't the sharpest knife in the drawer, so his uncle had a pretty hard time convincing his colleagues to hire him. I guess they felt bad for a couple of high school dropouts who were homeless and expecting a kid because they gave him a desk job. Well, a fairly easy one since Raymond wasn't the smartest guy. I suppose he was content, at least initially, with a steady job and a growing family to provide for. But life has a way of throwing curveballs, and those early years of marriage weren't as smooth as we had hoped. Raymond, who had once been so full of dreams and aspirations, started to change. He drank more, and his temper flared more often. The realities of adulthood and the weight of responsibility began to take a toll on him, I guess. Our relationship suffered. What was once a bad romance had turned into bickering over bills, chores, and the everyday routines of life. We had to let go of those big, stupid dreams of our youth. Those dreams of traveling the world, starting a business together, and living in a big house felt like distant memories. Now I'm 33 and Raymond is 35. He's still working that same job at the warehouse, still handling the bookkeeping. It's a meager income, barely enough to keep the lights on and food on the table, especially because he wastes most of his income on booze. We've had to stay in trailer parks and in crowded, run-down apartments from time to time, but we're getting by. Our fights were like a broken record playing on repeat. Our tiny house felt suffocating with all the tension. Our words, once sweet and loving, turned into harsh, bitter exchanges. Our baby, the one thing that should have brought us closer, ended up living with my mom. It hurt like hell, but I couldn't let our kid witness the chaos. Our arguments got nasty, real nasty. The air was heavy with accusations and name-calling. I'd call Raymond out on his spending habits, telling him straight up that he was ruining us financially. I begged him to step up and think about the family, but he'd throw it back in my face. "It's my money, Roxy. If you want more, go get a job. Stop bothering me and telling me how to spend my goddamn money." The irony was rich. I knew I needed to pitch in, but it wasn't as simple as it sounded. I didn't have the connections Raymond did, and finding a job was like searching for a needle in a haystack. I scoured job ads and sent out application after application, but all I got was radio silence or rejection letters. When I did score a gig, it was never great. Cleaning other people's homes, babysitting for folks who couldn't or didn't give a damn about their kids. I'd come home exhausted, my hands torn up from scrubbing, my eyes bloodshot from the incessant cries from the kids I babysat, but it barely covered our bills. Raymond would just scoff at my hard work, making it seem like peanuts. The more we fought, the further apart we drifted. We were like two ships passing in the night, wanting more, but clueless about how to get there together. I miss the old days when love felt like all we needed to conquer the world. Raymond's no calling at work policy was one of those things that drove me crazy. He'd drill it into my head, making it clear that under no circumstances should I ever ring him up while he was on the job. It wasn't like I enjoyed interrupting his workday, but I couldn't help but worry about emergencies or situations that might require his immediate attention. I remember this one terrifying incident that still gives me shivers. Our daughter's throat had started swelling up and she was having a hard time breathing. Panic washed over me, obviously, and I called Raymond, praying he'd answer. No response. I left frantic messages telling him it was urgent, calling him again and again, trying to tell him that our baby girl needed medical help, and still not a peep from him. Hours felt like days, and by the time he finally came home, I was a mess of nerves, of course. I rushed to the door, ready to spill out what had happened and ask for his support, but he cut me off before I could even start. "I don't know what's wrong with you. I told you not to call me when I'm at work." What? Ugh, are you really as stupid as you look, Roxy? Never call me for anything stupid again. I don't care what you think is an emergency. I'm at work, Roxy, working my butt off to bring in money for this family. You better learn how to deal with things yourself. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer, dude. I had no idea that someone could be so cruel, especially when it came to the health of their daughter. Life was just getting worse after that hospital episode with our kid. Raymond and I hardly talked anymore, and when we did, it was nothing but bitterness and anger. Truth be told, I'd thought a lot about leaving him, escaping from this messed up marriage. But here's the deal. I was trapped. I didn't have a secret stash of money for a rainy day. Most of what I earned went straight into our shared bank account. And Raymond watched it like a hawk, and let me tell you, he wasn't thrilled when he saw our balance going down. I had to be sneaky about it. I started saving a little here and there, tucking cash away whenever I could. Raymond, of course, noticed our finances changing. He didn't hold back, telling me I was lazy and worthless for not pulling my weight. Those words hurt like hell, but I had to suck it up. I had a plan. My aim was to save enough money to survive for a few months without Raymond's income. It wasn't going to be a cakewalk, but I had to do it, not just for myself, but for my daughter too. I couldn't let her keep growing up in that toxic mess. So I kept at it. I worked like crazy, took extra shifts, babysat when I could, and squirreled away every dollar I could find. The path ahead was hazy, but I knew I had to take the plunge. I needed to find a way out of this never-ending nightmare, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. One day, I guess unsurprisingly, Ray and I got into it about my level of income. We were sitting in the dimly lit living room, our daughter tucked away in her room asleep, and Raymond stared at me with those bloodshot eyes of his breath reeking of cheap whiskey. "You're a real piece of work, Roxy. You hardly bring in any money anymore. You're so useless." I couldn't take it anymore. The anger, the frustration, the hurt, it all bubbled up inside me. "You know what, Raymond? You think I haven't been pulling my weight, but the truth is I've been saving money. Yeah, I've been holding out." "What the hell are you talking about?" "You heard what I said. I'm sick of living like this, living with an idiot like you. I gotta get me and my baby out of here." "You think you can leave me, Roxy? You don't have the guts." We argued for what felt like hours, trading harsh words and bitter accusations. It all came crashing down when Raymond slammed the door behind him, leaving me alone in our wrecked living room. I collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. I felt trapped, hopeless, and more alone than ever. I knew I couldn't turn to my friends or my mom for help. I didn't want to burden them with my problems, didn't want to seem weak or needy. So I wiped away my tears and stared at the cracked ceiling, determined to find a way out of this mess on my own. Months had gone by, and every time I'd bring my small funds to the table to add to the family funds, Ray would either yell at me and accuse me of still holding out on him. I had to lie and say I was bringing everything to the table and that I'd stopped my shenanigans. It took me a while to convince him of this lie, but eventually his bitterness turned into laughter. He'd scoff at my attempt to leave him, often gloating about how he was the backbone of this family and everyone relied on him. Little did he know I was still stowing away some cash on the side because I had no plans of giving up my dream of escaping that hellhole. Then the best, worst day of my life came around, and boy, you wouldn't believe what happened. I was in the tiny kitchen trying to whip up something for my kid when I caught sight of the dinky TV we had in the corner. The news came on. It was showing a building totally on fire, smoke going everywhere, and guess what? It was Raymond's workplace. At first I couldn't believe it, you know. I thought maybe, just maybe, it was some other place, not his office. But the truth was hard to ignore. I jumped to my phone and started Googling, and well, it turned out it really was his office. I panicked. Despite all the mess and fighting between us, I couldn't help but worry about him. Picture this, him trapped in that blazing nightmare, struggling to get out. I also thought about our daughter. How would she feel if she lost her dad like that? I couldn't let him die, no matter how much I resented him. Fear took over everything. So obviously the next logical thing for me to do was to call his phone, right? This was an emergency, and despite his stupid rule about not calling him, one would think that that wouldn't apply in this case, right? Wrong. You see, when I finally mustered the guts to call him, I couldn't even say a word. He was like, "Roxy, I told you not to call me at work. Why are you so stupid?" "I know about your stupid rule, but I'm in a meeting. Get off my phone." "Raymond, listen." But he didn't get it. Just went on this rant about how I never respected his job, how I made his work life a living hell. I tried to cut in to make him understand, but nope, he wouldn't stop. And then, while he's still in the middle of this rant, I hear it. A soft, sweet voice in the background. "Hurry up, baby, I miss you." What the heck? Who the hell was that? Before I could even say a word or wrap my head around what I just heard and what was happening, Raymond abruptly hung up. I was just standing there holding my phone, looking like Boo Boo the Fool, like what the heck just went down. In our tiny trailer, I started pacing back and forth, the old linoleum creaking under my feet. Man, that room felt like it was closing in on me. I had this heavy feeling in my chest, and tears were just waiting to burst out. My husband, the guy I'd known for years, my high school sweetheart, had not only just turned into a total stranger, but a lying, cheating one at that. As I sat down on our worn-out couch, tears streamed down my face. I couldn't help but replay the last few years in my mind. It was in that moment of pacing, my mind racing 1,000,000 miles a minute, that it hit me like a ton of bricks. The reason Raymond had that stupid no calling at work policy wasn't because of his precious meetings or his work ethic. It was because he was off somewhere else, cheating. Seriously, he had no clue about the fire at his office building, which meant he sure as heck wasn't anywhere near it. He had to be at his mistress or girlfriend's house, cozying up with her while the place he supposedly worked at went up in flames. The rage inside me started boiling like a kettle ready to burst. Cheating? That was the ultimate betrayal. After everything we'd been through, all the highs and lows, I had thought that he'd at least be decent enough not to cheat on me. But in hindsight, I felt like the world's biggest fool for not seeing it coming sooner. Fury coursed through my veins, and I knew I couldn't handle this mess on my own. And that's when I made up my mind. I started packing my things, and you know what? I decided to pack up all Raymond's stuff too. If he wanted to cheat on me and destroy our family, fine, but he wasn't going to get away with it easily. I had plans. Big plans. I was going to sell every last bit of his junk to make some extra money, and I didn't care if he ever saw it again. I didn't care if he ever saw his baby again. And I damn well didn't care if he never saw me again. It was time to turn the tables, to take control of my life. The anger fueled me, and as I stuffed all of our crap into boxes, I felt a newfound sense of determination. But the burning question remained. What was my next move? How was I going to get out of this mess and create a better future for my daughter and myself? So there I was, hauling boxes of our stuff out of that run-down trailer. It felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders, but for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was taking control of my life. I drove over to my mom's place with all our stuff, realizing that I couldn't do this on my own anymore. I broke down and spilled everything to her. I cried in her arms, confessing all the terrible things that had been going on, other than the crap she already knew. She was mad at me, rightfully so, for letting things get so out of hand. She'd always told me I could depend on her, but it took me way too long to finally take her up on that offer. Still, she was relieved that I'd come to my senses and decided to move in with her for the time being. Later that evening, when Raymond finally returned to that sad trailer I used to call home, he called me incessantly. The phone rang at least 50 times, but I wasn't about to pick up. Instead, I sent him a text telling him I was busy. He texted back, warning me that he'd sue me if I didn't return his stuff. But I wasn't playing around anymore, and I told him that if he did that, I'd file for divorce, and trust me, the settlement would eat him alive. With his infidelity thrown into the mix, I could ask for more money, and the child support checks he'd have to cut would run him dry. He was furious, of course, cursing me out and claiming that I was ruining his life. But I knew my husband. I knew he didn't want the social and financial nightmare of a divorce. It was better for both of us if I just left, and so we split up that way. You'll regret this, Rox. I'll find a way to get back to you. Trust me. Try your worst, you scummy piece of crap. You think you can just take my stuff and run away? You're going to regret this, Roxy. Regret? You've got some nerve, Raymond. You've put me through hell for years, and you're talking about regret? You don't know what you're getting into, Roxy. I'll sue you for every penny you've got. Oh, sue me. That's rich. You should be thanking your lucky stars. That's all I'm doing. You're such a pain in the ass. Always nagging, always complaining. Nagging, complaining. You don't get it, do you? I put up with your crap, your drinking, your cheating, your crap for years, and now I'm taking control of my life and you can't handle it? Screw you. You're a pathetic and weak man. You don't even deserve your daughter. You never deserved me. Oh, what? Now you're growing a conscience? Now you're stuttering and stammering? You're a fool. You're a mess. Where are you right now? Tell me, I swear to God, I'm coming to get my crap back. I'm at my mother's. Send me the location right now. It's worth mentioning that my mother moved to a new place and he didn't care enough to get her new address. That's just how disinterested and neglectful he was. No, screw you. What? Stop screwing around, Roxy. I'm being serious. Send it right, okay? You didn't care enough to get her address when she moved, so that's your problem. You regret this. Regret? The only regret I have is not doing this sooner. You brought this on yourself, Raymond, and don't you dare forget it. The next few weeks were both a relief and a struggle. My mother was so gracious, and my daughter and I stayed there for several months while I tried to piece back my shattered life. I found a small apartment for my daughter and me, and I was working multiple jobs to make ends meet. It was tough, but it was also freeing. Because I was still very obviously bitter and resentful, I decided to give Raymond a taste of his own medicine. I know I said I'd only take his crap and leave him with nothing, but that wasn't enough. I took to social media and exposed his cheating, his lies, kind of like how I'm doing right now. and the way he'd made my life a living hell. The response, surprisingly, was overwhelming. I essentially blew up my little Facebook community. People shared, commented, and even sent messages of support. Raymond? Well, he became a social pariah in no time. Then, the icing on the cake. I heard through the grapevine that he got fired from his job. Apparently his uncle, who had put him onto the job in the first place, decided it was better for business to cut ties with Raymond. They didn't need the extra drama, especially after the fire fiasco, which was, ironically enough, caused by the company's negligence. I couldn't help but grin ear to ear when I heard that. It was like karma had finally caught up with him. Raymond had reaped what he'd sown, and I wasn't going to feel sorry for him. In fact, I was starting to feel like life without Raymond might just turn out to be a whole lot brighter. One day, as I was juggling my jobs and my daughter's school schedule, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I was exhausted, my hair was disheveled, and there were dark circles under my eyes. But I was also smiling. It was a genuine smile, something I hadn't done in years. I realized that leaving Raymond had been the best decision of my life. I was finally free from the toxicity that had been drowning me. I was taking care of my daughter, and we were building a new life together, one that was filled with love and support, not anger, neglect, and resentment.